Okay, so at this point I have the battery holder anchored. So you can see at the top here, these two holes are anchored and the bottom comes up. If we look at the back, you can see they're knotted. It's not going to come out. So the next step would be then to begin sewing one of the circuits. So I have a piece of conductive thread here. I've made a knot at the bottom, and the first thing you have to do is sew, well, you have to anchor the positive side here through this hole. So you're going to do the exact same thing that you did last time. Now here, this is quite a long tail. The problem with conductive thread is that, it's conductive. So if you have conductive thread touching other pieces of conductive thread, that's where you end up with a short circuit. So what is recommended here is to actually cut this fairly short. I usually leave about, I guess that's maybe about a ½ inch, a third of an inch past the knot, and I'm going to cut that, and you'll see that it's getting frayed already. You don't want to lose the knot, so we're actually going to go back at the end and add some Elmer's glue to that to kind of keep it from coming apart. You've learned that when sewing you need to leave a tail, but the conductive thread is a little bit different. So I have the tail trimmed, and later I'll be adding some glue to that as well. So now I'm going to do the same whip stitch to anchor this here, and then I'm going to do a running stitch all the way up to here and then anchor the LED light. Oh, I just messed up. So I just took the needle out. When I make a mistake, see what I did there? I took the needle out, and then I can just pull this back out. Didn't mean to do that. Sometimes when you try to rethread your needle, especially with the conductive thread, it's a bit frayed here. So I feel like if I cut this, I get it a little bit less frayed, at least for a short period of time, where I can then try and thread that needle again. Just cut a small amount off. Oh, this one is hard to thread because I have a very small eye, and you can see that it just starts spreading apart very quickly. Okay, so now I'm back in business. I'm going to finish anchoring this. Just go through like 3, 4, probably 5 times would be good. That's what I did on the other one. And then, once I have it anchored, I'm going to start doing the circuit. So I'm going to do the running stitch along this line that I made with the chalk. And when I do the running stitch, I'm going to make sure that my stitches are even. It should look the same on the back as it does on the front. The space in between each stitch should be about the same size as the stitch. That's really how it goes. If you don't follow your circuit line exactly, like if it's off just a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. You just want to make sure you are near it, pretty close. So you can see I'm still working on sewing this running stitch along the circuit. It's really important that you don't have loops or tangles when using the conductive thread. The back side is going to look almost just like the front side. Notice this is not touching where it's anchored either. That could become a problem. These little strings, you just don't want to get tangled in them, but that's just regular thread. So that's not going to affect anything unless you get tangled in it. in order to anchor the LED, I'm going to pull my little light out again, place it there. They're little, don't lose them. I chose the white LED. Now, here's an important thing to remember. You want to have positive and positive on the same side. So this little guy, it can go right about here. And then I'm going to anchor it the same way I did down here. But notice there's a space between where the last stitch was and where I anchor it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of hold it with one hand. And then I want to come up through that hole on the positive side, because at the bottom I'm also on the positive side. Pull it all the way through, checking it, and now anchor. It's a little awkward until you get it anchored on there. It moves around a little bit. But once you get a couple whip stitches through there, it becomes a little easier for it to stay put. So at this point, I just created a knot right here to anchor the conductive thread. And again, I'm using my fingernail here to pull the knot down. I just want to make sure it's really secure. And the tail, again, you're going to have to cut it kind of close, about 1/4 of an inch. But then what will happen is if these little ends come back and touch something else, that can be a problem. So we are going to glue those down. I think I want to do all the gluing at the same time. So now I've completed, except for gluing the tail down, one side of my circuit, and now I shall do the other side.